And our effort, again, is to expose what's going on, this manipulation of the price.
Hmm.
Right? The price of gold should be double what it is today if it just kept up with inflation. So it's a big, big deal, and it's going to lead to a lot of convulsion down the road.
Welcome to Rethinking the Dollar. Today I'm excited to have my guest, Mr. Bill Murphy. He's a financial commentator as well as a precious metals analyst as well as activist. Today he's joining us to discuss and share his thoughts on our monetary system as well as the price manipulation in the precious metals industry. Bill is the chairman of the Gold Antitrust Action Committee, or GATA, and also is a blogger at La Metropole Cafe. So, Bill, welcome to Rethinking the Dollar.
Great to hear, Mike. Thanks for thinking on me.
Well, I'm looking forward to talking to you. I know you do a lot of great work as far as the whole gold and precious metal education realm. So I'm really looking to get into some solutions for our current monetary mess, knowing that precious metals has always been a form of money. So I'm looking forward to getting your take on that. And before we get into that, I'd like to start off with some rethinking the dollar questions. And the first one is, what comes to mind when Bill Murphy hears the words rethinking the dollar?
Well, it's a good question, Mike, because most people in the United States anyway never think about the dollar. You've been all over the world, and especially in South America, and you know how the currencies trade, and most people are conscious of what's going on. But here in America, people say it's a given. You know, dollar's the major reserve currency, and people just accept that it's always going to be, what it is. And at some point here, that's probably going to change quite a bit, and they're going to be more concerned about what the dollar's doing and what the Federal Reserve is doing behind the scenes, printing money and that kind of thing. So it's just a great subject for people to be aware of.
Right. Now, how important is it for Americans, especially right now, as well as citizens globally, to begin taking an interest in the precious metals manipulation, as well as just monetary history, as well as their own practical financial dealings? How important is it, and why is it important right now, in your opinion?
Well, the most important way Americans are affected by the dollar is inflation. And that's when they think about it. And if they're traveling some places, because as I mentioned, you've traveled all over the place. So all of a sudden, we're importing all kinds of stuff, and all of a sudden it goes way up in price, and America goes, whoa, what happened here? All of a sudden it costs X amount of more dollars to buy something. And that's when it gets them to focus on what's really going on. Or when you travel to a different country, if the dollar is strong, everything is cheap. And then vice versa, what happens? I know I've spent a lot of time in Canada and lived up in Vancouver for a while. And then the dollar's valued from being a Canadian dollar 1/3 to less than that to $1 to a little bit more expensive years ago. So it makes a big, big difference what the dollar is doing. And if you're involved in trade or in different going back and forth in travel and so on, you notice it quite a bit.
Right, good point there. Now, I'd like to pose a question rather. If you were given a chance to deliver the global state of the economy address, what all would it entail and why?
Well, it's a good question. Of course, it encompasses quite a bit, as you know.
Just whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, well, from my standpoint, things are much worse than people understand, and that's something that you can bring to your subscribers, and at least what I have to say, whatever it's worth, is that they've lowered interest rates to near zero and less than zero in Europe and Japan and the United States. The interest rates are right above zero. It's because things aren't going that well, and they've been pumping money into the system through quantitative easing and money printing and different programs since 2008, 2009, and all of a sudden it's starting to stumble, and they keep going back to the well to do the same things, and all of a sudden, all what they've been doing to try to get economies going again are going to start hitting the wall, and that's why the gold market all of a sudden is percolating, and we'll get into this, but why the government and what we call the gold cartel is trying to keep it down, but basically, things are not as good as they think. And a lot of the reason Trump and Sanders doing so well, and look what happened up your way in Michigan, is because the average person knows that they're getting the shaft. And the big money and power are doing great and pulling way ahead of everybody else. And the average person isn't doing that well, and he's struggling.
Right.
And they don't like it. And that's why you're having this political situation, what it is. So if I'm correct here, once all their ability, runs its course, which it's in the process of doing, we have some very tough times ahead.
Right, right. But let's get into the whole precious metals manipulation. How is, most people who don't understand the subject of money in general don't really know anything about, sound money as well as, gold and silver, how the price is set and things like that. So give us a layman's term on how precious metals it's how the price is formed and how the whole manipulation aspect has come into play.
Well, gold, as you know, has been used as money for 5,000 years. That's what the gold people talk about all the time. And it's true because it is what it is. And in the past, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, I guess even more, 70 years, the central banks have taken over by just printing money. They're what they call fiat currency. And they just, if they want more money into the system to support what they're doing, they put money in the system and that's help to support the economies and so on. So when we go to gold, I mean, it's a finite thing. It represents value to many people versus a currency, as we said, they can just print it. So the government in the United States and this gold cartel and other central banks and the BIS, which is Bank of International Settlements, they look in the West as gold as sort of an enemy. It's a barometer of economic health in the United States, thermometer, and when it goes up, what happens? It's always bad. It's too much inflation, it's a crisis.
Yeah.
X interest rates. So the gold cartels we wanted, or the Fed, or as the United States, wants to keep the barometer, gold, being as low as possible all the time. Because when it goes up, as I said, it reflects that things aren't going well. And they want to deflect from all the money they're printing and what they're doing and so on. So that's why the gold prices come down from 1,900 to 1,100 the past years, and now it's on its way back up again. They forced the price down in order to do what again to deflect from what they were doing.
Right. Now, how did you get involved with the whole idea of bringing this to the light? How did the Gold Antitrust Action Committee come about, and what allowed you to what kind of gave you the fuel to get this whole movement going?
Good question. Well, it's 1998. I started my website. I have a big commodity background in trading, and I was with a guy who wrote a book about the gold market. Got a lot of attention. Once I opened my website, this hedge fund, long-term capital management, huge hedge fund, everyone was involved, and it blew up. And I saw the gold price. I saw the bullion banks coming in and stopping the price of gold below 300. And it was clear to me as a trader that it was fixed. It was rigged. And I heard different reports of who was doing what. And I just started complaining about it all the time. And my colleague, Chris Powell, who's the editor of a daily newspaper, said, "I'm sick and tired of you complaining about it. Let's do something about it and try to expose it and stop it." And I got on CNBC soon thereafter in February of 1999. And as soon as they heard what I had to say, that was it. So, but that's how it got started. And we've had 4 international conferences, and we've been followed by the Chinese government, the Russian government. And our effort, again, is to expose what's going on, this manipulation of the price. Right? The price of gold should be double what it is today if it just kept up with inflation. So it's a big, big deal, and it's going to lead to a lot of convulsion down the road.
Right. Now, how has, I guess, the manipulation of the prices of commodities, primarily gold and silver, really benefit the financial institutions? And, with in all the rigging and things like that, how has it really benefit them the most?
Well, it goes back to a little bit what I covered in the sense of a low price keeps interest rates lower than what they would have been. It's a barometer. It's a really simplistic comment, but to think of that, when the price goes way up, everyone says, "What's wrong?" And it's bad for business. It's bad for politicians. It's bad for the bullion banks. They want things to be copacetic, and they want the markets to continue, and they want as they're going higher and so on, and they want to obfuscate or they want to make sure people aren't focused on things that might be going wrong behind the scenes, or even that are out in the open. So by keeping the gold price down, it just says, "Oh, everything's okay," and that's what they've done. And what they've done is delay things that are going to cause the average person a lot of problems, and that's different convulsions in the markets because they've stopped the free market process. It's unbelievable that we would talk about free markets in our country so much, and that's just not the case. I mean, initially rigging the gold and silver prices, and silver has to be rigged because it's associated with gold. But they've been rigging the interest rates, which everybody knows, and they've been involved in the stock market through the plunge protection team. And eventually they've made markets that are unstable, and that's what you're seeing right now. The markets are trading all over the place and really getting very volatile, and this is just the beginning.
Right. Wow. Now you mentioned earlier that right now if there wasn't any manipulation, the price would be double what it is now. So do you see it actually eventually doubling or going beyond what it probably really should be because of natural occurrences or because of some type of event?
Well, great question, Mike. Basically, it all has to do with the gold cartel's ability. That's again, the Fed, the Treasury, bullion banks, other central banks, ability to keep the price down via supply that they have. And right now, Western demand is picking way up. People are concerned. And it's overpowering their ability to keep the price down. It's a process. They're hitting a tipping point where they can't do it anymore. That's why gold's trading so differently now.
Yeah.
So they're going to lose control. I don't know where the price, you can pick an upside number, but I've always said 3,000 to 5,000. Silver, which is a joke what they're doing, is now about 15 and change. That's going to go way over 100. You have massive historic moves coming, and it's going to be very volatile when they finally are forced to run for the hills. And that is a process that's happening right now.
Right, right. Now, question on a national scale, there's a lot of Eastern countries that are accumulating massive amounts of gold, and then on the West, it's kind of downplayed. Apart from me hearing just recently that Canada is down to, I think I read on Zero Hedge, it is 77 ounces in their total storage or something like that. How come everything is shifting out east, and why is there no mention really of it out west?
Great point. I'm glad you're on top of it. And part of it because, as I mentioned, the Russians know what we know, Chinese know what we know. They're buying it all. The West is part of the price suppression process. The central banks have been flooding the gold into the market, being leasing operations and so on, which they put the money in the gold in the market, which adds supply, suppresses the price. They're running out of it. And they've been doing this since I started this thing in 1998, 99. And they're hitting the wall with that ability to access physical supply to keep it down. These other people know what's going on, and they know what the price is going to do. And it's a very, very exciting time where we finally reached where the bad guys, as I call them, can't do it anymore.
Right.
So that's what you're, if I may, this is what I can bring to the table for your subscribers.
Right, right, right. I understand that. Now, this is a question that, of course, there's no absolute answer, and hopefully one day the truth will come to the light. But I've asked a lot of my prior guests about the whole idea that the United States used to have the largest reserves of gold in Fort Knox, 8,000 or whatever so tons of gold. Do you think that gold is still in our possession, and will it ever come to the point where we'll be forced to use it to back up what we already owe, or come settle some debts, or what do you think, the future of the whole Fort Knox situation might unfold to be?
Right on. There hasn't been an audit since, I think, 1955. Nobody knows what's there. It's a farce. It's supposed to be 8,135 tons of gold. I don't think they have a quarter of that. You can see the United States cannot sell gold to suppress the price. But what they can do is swap gold with other countries. I mean, I need an act of Congress to sell gold. They can swap it with other countries and sell their gold, and that's how they've got around it.
Yeah.
So I doubt we have anywhere near the gold we say we have, and it's going to create a real problem down the road when the chaos breaks loose, and all of a sudden everybody really wants to figure out what happened, where is our gold, and so on. So it's going to be a financial scandal of epic proportions when it hits, and it's coming in the years ahead.
Right. Now, I know that from 33 to 74, I believe, the private ownership of gold was kind of illegal. And so that was all a part of the plan to get it out of circulation, to, demonetize it in a sense. And so do you foresee a time where, gold enters back into the hands of ordinary people to exchange for a medium of value type of thing, or what, down the line, possibly?
Well, I know that's what the United States doesn't want at all, and I can't imagine them ever confiscating it. What we have, most Americans don't own it even, and the rest of the world would laugh at us. But when it comes into day-to-day stuff, I'm not so sure of that. I just think the value is going to go nuts because of its real value compared to all the money that's just been printed. And where it is going to be a big deal is that more and more Americans are going to want to own gold and silver. That's coming when you see the lines to buy the stuff, because they're going to want to have it when everything else is, so uncertain and in jeopardy of falling apart. And who knows what can happen with IRAs and different things. People are going to want to own gold and silver just for the satisfaction of having something that they know the value of, that's for real and going to be there in the years ahead when everything else is in trouble. So I think that's where it's going to become a big deal.
All right. Now, this is a somewhat of a different question, but I thought I'll ask. The Federal Reserve note. I mean, the whole idea of this show is rethinking the dollar, giving people a different way of looking at what we currently call money or use as money. Now, I guess you've seen the evolution of how they had the silver certificates, the Federal Reserve notes, United States notes in circulation. Was that something ever that you really crossed your mind yesteryears for yourself when as you had alternative means of exchanging as far as different types of notes at the time? Did you watch that as it unfolded, just being dwindled down to the Federal Reserve note?
Not really. I think that to some of the other, learned people that you have on your program.
Yeah.
I really never got into that. My focus is a little myopic in the sense of the gold and silver and the prices and what's going on and what the bad guys are doing and what it's going to mean down the road and what's coming. So I never really went there.
Yeah, so fair enough. I thought I would ask that question. Now let's get into some solutions. We know that manipulation is rampant in the precious metal sector. With data, like are there ways that you can educate the audience to take action on their own, to voice their opinion, to wake people up to this idea of being supportive to what your work is?
Well, it's tough. I mean, we have a list of people we send stuff to, the major reporters. They won't discuss it. The Bloomberg reporter, Claudia Carpenter in London, we had a conference and told us she's not even allowed to mention God. Mention it. What kind of free press is that?
Yeah. Wow.
We on the internet's been a huge boom. That's helped to change things. But even a lot of the mainstream people in the gold silver world don't want to hear about it because we're taking on the biggest money and power in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And people just don't want to go there. The gold industry itself is pathetic. I mean, the leaders of the industry, because, they're making their big salaries. And to be fair, a lot of them have to get mining permits and work with governments. And they're working with the bullion banks, the same ones that they're hurting them. The whole thing is really, it's unbelievable.
Right.
But little by little, what's going to happen is we're getting the word out and more people are seeing what's going on, even if they don't want to talk about it publicly. And eventually it'll become a big scandal when it blows up. And then everyone's going to want to know, as I mentioned, what the heck happened. So all we can do is do what we're doing and get on shows like yours. And, you're doing a fine job in what you do. And eventually it has a cumulative effect.
Right. Now, last couple questions before we wrap it up. How important really is it for people who may just be coming across data, as well as Bill Murphy, your message on trying to awaken people to the idea that things aren't what they seem they are? How important is it for people to begin to take action as far as actually acquiring some form of alternative, means of storing their energy and their wealth?
Well, you can imagine I'm prejudiced. Silver is just going to go bonkers. And just to have some as an insurance peace of mind, they've always talked about having 5 or 10%. Of course, someone like myself is much more involved financially with it. But just to have some, because out of sight, out of mind. Mm-hmm. I mean, you own gold and silver. You're going to be thinking about it, and it's going to bring the kind of stuff that you're bringing to the table, going to get them thinking. Mm-hmm. And so, if nothing else, acquire some gold and silver so you're aware of what's going on and the kind of stuff that you're talking about in your work.
Right. Now, last question. What are some ways that people can begin educating themselves? Of course, they have your site, my site, things like that. Are there any books that kind of, reinforce your passion and your interest in educating people?
Well, so many, but I'm going to go right back to what you might expect me to say. LaMetropoleCafe.com. You can sign up for a 2-week free trial and see if it's of value to any of your followers. And my colleague Chris Powell puts out a great information flow at www.gada.org, and they can sign up and it's free.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's to get right to the point. That's what I would recommend, and it's easy reading, and people can get right to and take what they want and leave what they want.
Sounds good. Well, Bill Murphy, I thank you for sitting down and sharing your take on this whole gold manipulation, everything else. And, one day I believe the truth will come to the surface, and hopefully people will have, taken some preparations, and, hopefully, everything will be all right in the end. I believe it will be. So, yeah, thanks for sitting down with me.
Well, Mike, if I might end with the truth, they say the truth will set you free, and in this case, the truth, when you understand it, will make you a lot of money.
That is hopefully one day will. But Bill, thanks for sitting down. Look forward to continue to follow your work. You do a great job. You're all over the internet sharing your wealth of knowledge. So appreciate you taking time for me to sit down with us here at Rethinking the Dollar.
Thank you, Mike. Good luck to you.
Thank you. Well, this concludes my conversation with Bill Murphy from the Metropole Cafe and thegata.org. Hope you found our conversation to be informative as well as educational. I want to encourage you to scroll below, leave us a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this interview, as well as subscribe to Rethinking the Dollar for more RTD interviews and more monetary news updates. Looking forward to bringing you more interviews. Until next time.